You incarnate and you grow up. You're indoctrinated by a very human family and neighborhood and schoolyard and high school environment and teachers and professors. And before you know it, you forget your original freedom, your original clarity. I want you to have an overview of the path and why you are here. I want you to remember why you are here, and it is with great purpose that you came here. What we desire, what our soul desires, is progress. It's evolution of the spirit. It's evolution of self-knowledge. Hello everyone, can you hear me? Nice to see you. Welcome back. And while I light my cigar, you can start by giving yourself a minute to just consider your life so far as a person. Not saying that all there is to it, all there is to you, but you have lived life as a person. You're familiar with this. So just kind of almost melancholically, bittersweetly, in fast-forwarded manner, replay, rewind the journey. And the fact also that it's been intense, most likely. It's been a challenge, complex, layered. There's been the experience of loss and lack and fear and hope and desire and betrayal and all these human things. There's been the endeavors, the personal ambitions and motivations, perhaps to compensate for other losses or other lack beliefs or other unworthiness ideas. And just review how long you have lived. Quite a bit of that. And I will smoke this cigar to your spiritual harmony and advancement. Many blessings and intentions in this. Wonderful. Thank you for the quick live review. Don't worry, when you die, you get a whole bunch of time to do this. So you don't have to cover everything right now. But it is useful practice. It always is. To, at the end of the day, or whenever you think about it, really, at the end of the week, maybe, just to go over some of your life experiences from that day, as if you're watching a movie, observing yourself from third-person view, helicopter view. And you'll be surprised what you learn, nuances, even without trying anything. All you do is you review your own behavior, your thought patterns, your feelings, your motivations, and you will naturally start to see, because you're not as invested in them anymore at the end of the day. You know, when you're in them, you're in them. But You're about to go to sleep, you're tired, you don't really care that much about your day anymore. You care more about falling asleep, perhaps. And so if you take just a few minutes to review some of the highlights, some of the subtleties that had an impact on your life and that had an impact on others that day, you'd be surprised what this non-attached awareness of your own self patterns and your own self thoughts and your own self feelings will elucidate for you. And this will help with healing, with harmony, with integration. And it will ensure that tomorrow you are a different person. And that's a good thing in most cases, that you evolve. It's what we desire most. It's why we are ambitious when we are ambitious. It's why we are depressed and lethargic when we are depressed and lethargic. It's all because what we desire, what our soul desires, whether we agree to it or not, is progress. It's evolution of the spirit. It's evolution of self-knowledge. And where is this evolution about to take us, or where can it take us right now? Because you have put yourselves in a privileged position, and I can deduce that based on the fact simply that you're here. And I'm not saying it's because of my sessions, but I'm saying I can tell based on the fact that you are part of these sessions that you have put yourself in a privileged position overall in your life, spiritually speaking. Because if you compare this with the hundreds of millions, scratch that, billions of human beings who have the same soul pressures that you do, different nuances, different flavors, but the same overall soul pressure. And by soul pressure, I mean the seeking impulse, the desire for evolution. Not knowing where to seek that, not knowing how to seek that, not knowing how to practice that, not knowing whom to talk about that with, but nevertheless, that pressure is there. We are all victims of the evolutionary impulse of the Creator. And I mean that positively. It's the only way in which you can linger on the fact that you're a victim. So if you ever feel like you're in a victim mood, just say, okay, I am a victim. But the only thing I'm a victim of is the seeking impulse of the Creator within me. That I cannot escape no matter what I do, no matter how much drugs or booze I consume, no matter how many cigars I smoke, no matter how many relationships I start, no matter how much sex I have, no matter how much chocolate I eat, no matter if I die or not, no matter if I go to spiritual workshops or not, I am a victim through and through to the seeking impulse of the Creator within me, of Source within me. Yes, it's the only victim statement that would be accurate. But this is a positive thing. It's what you wanted yourself. It's why you are here. Then you incarnate and you grow up. You're indoctrinated by a very human family, a neighborhood, and schoolyard, and high school environment, and teachers and professors, friends and lovers and media and authority figures and what have you. And before you know it, you forget your original freedom, your original clarity. And you start assuming ideas. One of the most prevalent ideas that runs through all other ideas of the person consciousness, like a golden thread, although it's not as pretty as gold, is the idea, and there's several angles that we can address this from, and I will, but it is a collection of sorts of the idea of I am a person over here. So location is one of the variables of your assumption. You are assuming that you are existing inside of a location. You do this unconsciously for most of your day. You walk around, go grocery shopping, go watch a movie, talk to a friend. You're doing all of that with a background unconscious sense, a feeling, like a psychic feeling, that I am over here. My existence exists over here, and usually we point to the body. Where are you? I'm right here. And we approach life, we interact with life from that location. We assume that location. And that location can be deconstructed. You can look at it like you can look at any letter in a book and just analyze that word or letter or paragraph. Like you can open a book somewhere and study it and see what it's really made of. You can do this with your own psyche. You are an open book, as long as you're willing to look at the facts, what's really going on within you. And one core assumption that makes us a person, not truly, don't get me wrong, but in our own feeling state, in our own self-concept, that we carry with us on a day-to-day basis, that we bring with us into every dialogue, every argument, every idea, every interaction that we ever have with anyone else. It is all related to the idea that you have a location. Now, you could argue that you have a location, and I could agree to that to an extent if you're referring to your body. But the fact that your body has a relative location within this perceptual play that some call reality, but I more accurately call it the grand illusion, the experiential realm, it's experience land, the land of experiences, which in my opinion, you can't ever find reality there, not real reality. You can find relative truths, you can find accurate facts pertaining to the content of your illusion or your perception, but when it comes to reality, capital R, like what is real always, originally, call it God, call it source, call it yourself, call it the ultimate truth, the supreme reality, doesn't matter what you call it. If it's truly genuinely real, first of all, it must always be truly genuinely real, and it cannot change. If it can change, then it means it was never real to begin with. It was just another experience. Now, within this experience, you can observe the relative fact that your body has a location relative to the wall of the room that you're in, or relative to the person sitting next to you, or relative to the person in the other room. Yes, you have a location within that perception. However, that's not the reality of what you are. But what happens is, because this gets constantly reinforced by our sense perceptions, our sense organs, and our unconscious assumption. You know, when you get up out of your chair and you walk over to the door and you open the door and you walk over to your kitchen and, you get yourself a glass of water, whatever it is, that whole time that you get up from your chair and you move to your door and you go to your kitchen and you get a glass of water, you are carrying with you a background psychic feeling of location. I am over here, moving over there, grabbing this glass of water, opening my fridge, going back to my office, sitting back down in my chair. You don't even have to think about it anymore. This is an ongoing assumption. And again, I could agree that your physical body has a relative location relative to your fridge. However, what happens, because that constant reinforcement and that constant assuming that we do, we develop this background psychic self-concept that now, kind of like a virus, the relative effect of the fact that our bodies have a location now, like a virus, has spread, like sort of a zombie virus. It has spread and it has been transferred to, it has been translated to our existence as a location. So now, your innermost sense of existing, often that's been called the I am. It's the sense of I am. We all have the sense of I am. It's right now what's listening to my voice, right? You are aware that you exist. So there is this sense I exist. There's this knowingness, I am. But because we're so focused usually through and on the body, and we're so associated with its maneuvers around this planet, around the world, interactions with others that seem to be out there, and so on and so forth, we have sort of imprinted upon this originally stainless and pure I am consciousness. On this I am consciousness, we have imbibed, we have absorbed, we have imprinted, we have copied onto that a picture of location, a sense, a feeling of I am over here. And this is one of the main causes of why you have reduced yourself to the idea, to the belief, to the feeling, the psychic feeling that you are a person. That's vulnerable. That's a victim to a lot of things. That can't change a lot of things. That can't accept a lot of things, perhaps. That is in conflict, that is in fear, that is in avoidance, that is in anxiousness, anxiety. None of this is you. And just because your body has a location relative to your fridge, that in no way, shape, or form indicates, means, proves, confirms that you should believe that your existence has that same location. This is a major, major conflation in consciousness, in thinking. And it's become so automatic and unconscious, just an assumption. And it's reinforced every time you walk to your fridge. Now, don't go blame your fridge, because it's not just then. It's whenever you get up from your chair. Nice fridge. It's reinforced every time you get up from your chair. Your senses are reinforcing the idea that your I amness has a location inside of the body relative to your outer environment. How could you not feel like a victim when this is believed? When this is your predominant background feeling? I don't blame you. I don't blame myself. The times that I felt like a victim, it's always been like location-oriented. It's always come from this idea that I'm inside this body and that my self-worth also, like who I am as a person, is inside this body. So if now someone with their body standing 4 feet relative from my body, away from me, is producing some vibrations that I then interpret as sound and that I then interpret through the language I'm familiar with. And if they speak the language I'm familiar with, then I attribute meaning to those sound vibrations that hit my eardrums. My brain translates that as this has a certain meaning, which it doesn't. It's just a word. Someone from China wouldn't understand that word, perhaps, or someone from another planet wouldn't understand that word and would have no problem with being called a name. So it is entirely self-attributed from this location-based sense of self. And now it has an effect on my vibration, on my frequency, on my state of being. And I feel victimized. I feel, whatever it might be, betrayed, abandoned, lied to, abused, misused, not appreciated. I feel that way. When I attribute meaning from this background unconscious assumption that I exist and my worth exists inside of my skin line. So basically I'm saying my self-worth and my existence is made of pus, blood, calcium, fat, and protein. That's what I am. And somehow words produced by your fat and protein hitting my fat and protein gets then interpreted by me as having something to do with my fat and protein little based self. And this is how we go through life. This is the person. You're well familiar with it. We all are. It's inevitable. It's what we know we will have to deal with when we incarnate and we forget who we are. No big deal, but it is also kind of a big deal because it does affect every ounce of our sense of self. This is why we seek for evolution, for freedom, for liberation, for religion, for faith, for consciousness, for psychedelics, for whatever it might be that we're looking for. We are slaves and victims to the seeking impulse of the Creator within us. And thank God, because if we weren't, we would remain with the assumption for the rest of our existence that we are fat, protein, pus, and calcium. and a few other minerals, perhaps, depending on what you ate that day and so on. That you exist inside the skin line, that you're made of blood. Are you blood? Let me ask you a question. Are you blood? This question is more profound than you might give it credit for at first glance. Are you blood? You can ask yourself, am I blood? Seriously. Are you blood? No, right? I mean, I would assume your answer is no. Your body has blood running through it. We can say that's a fact, but are you blood? No. Are you bones? Are you fat? And I don't mean this in a classical way, like, are you fat? Like, are you fat? Is your I am fat? This big fat I am. Is your I am scrawny and emaciated? You get the point. What part of your body is you? And if your body is the only thing in your consciousness that has a location, and you can't find your I, your innermost sense of I, that feeling of I exist, that knowing that you are, and that knowingness of your existence, you cannot find it anywhere in your body, not a single cell, not a single mineral. None of your body defines you, is you, or contains you in any way, shape, or form. You are there as consciousness, as life itself, as intelligence, right now, hearing my voice, and you are right now witnessing your body having a location. See if you can get this, that if you are right now aware that your body, all the blood, pus, fat, protein, all that stuff, which you have already figured out is not you. If you are witnessing the body having a location right now, that proves you're not in it. See if you can get this. If you are aware of the body and its location, then your awareness is beyond it. Because you are not what you can perceive. You are that which perceives the body having a location. And when you forget this distinction, you will blend with your body and you will begin to adopt and imprint upon yourself, upon your consciousness, a feeling, a sense, a belief that you have a location. But that's because you've conflated, you've mistaken you for the body. And that's the birth of person consciousness. It is pure and quite lovely consciousness plus body and its assumption of location and identity. So when your awareness identifies with the body, what it produces as a tertiary effect is the person consciousness, identity, the assumption of ego, of self, as a person. Does this make any sense? I've been quite technical with this so far, but sometimes that's useful. Okay. Now, most of us know the state. It's a semi-conscious state. We can't say that you're unconscious, but we can also not say that you are fully aware, that you are fully illuminating yourself, that you are bright as a sun, radiating, irradiating throughout your body with this awareness that you're not the body. Can you walk around a busy plaza being aware that you are not your body without zooming out or zoning out or becoming a yogi or becoming a hippie or just being fully present in a busy plaza, the subway perhaps in New York City, something like that, or even just next to your wife or husband, which sometimes can be loud enough? And can you then be aware that you're not the body that's sitting there interacting with the other body. Without zoning out, without tuning out, without going into some weird ice-shaking, altered super state, can you just see clearly? Spirituality doesn't require any weirdness, okay? It really doesn't. It's as scientific as can be. It's direct observation. It is, I know that I exist. I cannot deny that I am. This I amness is therefore conscious because it knows itself. Whatever it might be, I can't quite find it anywhere. I can't say it's this apple. I can't say it's my body. I can't say it's this experience. But I know that I am. Throughout all of these experiences, equally, there I exist. Can you notice this? While you're in the subway or talking to your partner? Can you notice the awareness that shines through your body right now that is not located in your body? And the clearer you are on how your mind right now is assuming that you are the body, the clearer you can get on that subtle assumption within your consciousness. It's hiding in your subconscious mind. It's this subtle background feeling, this assumption, this belief, this idea that you are the body. If you can spot it, if you can identify it, you are freeing yourself from it right there and then. You're liberating yourself from that bondage. And you are widening your perspective greatly. And you're able to love instantly and be grateful instantly without any other technique. Why? Because your nature is happy, grateful, loving, free, generous, wide open like the sky. But when you conflate it with something that's made of pus and calcium and fat and protein and has a certain skin line, if you identify wide open, pure, space-like, intelligent, miracle beingness that has no form, that you can find an edge to, and you conflate it to be a bag of pus and blood, of course, you're not going to be able to love genuinely. Of course, you're not going to be able to be free and feel generous and grateful. Of course, you're going to make up all kinds of plans and ambitions to get what you need and get what you want and make sure nobody knows that that's what you really want. Now you're going to get it, and lying to yourself even. You get so used to that. Welcome to person consciousness. It's not the funnest place in the galaxy. It's very dense in its illusion, in its assumption. Again, you're all familiar with this. You can free yourself from this. This is what I teach. And many others teach it too. Pick your nectar. And where does this leave us? Where can we go next? Obviously, we're here. We're all adepts of some kind. We're all practitioners. We're interested in knowing ourselves. We're interested in evolving ourselves. So what's the next level? What's beyond person consciousness? There's quite a wide range between person consciousness and what you could roughly call God consciousness or enlightenment, or mirror consciousness, as I call it sometimes too. There's quite a big gap. There's the person over here, the ordinary human consciousness, the ordinary human self concept. And then there's God consciousness, which is identified with the essence of all that is, essentially. You can describe this in many different ways, but the enlightened one, the Buddha, the Christ consciousness, and so on, is more aware of themselves as the essence of all things than they are aware of themselves as a physical body or a person. And these concepts have been exposed to this greater awareness, and they have been either cleared out or they're unbelieved in, and they're seen through. And that being is now abiding in, quite naturally, automatically. It's aware of its unified self. It's like the wave aware of the fact that it is water. Sure, it can interact with the wave. It understands it has a wave expression, but it knows it's water. It's not a wave. It's a water, and the water doesn't stop at the wave. These are analogies, and they're not entirely accurate, but they will do. You get the sense. You get the point. But what is between being a wave and being the water? This is a big spectrum, spiritually speaking. On the ladder of spiritual evolution, this covers third density, late third density, fourth density, fifth density, and sixth density. So late third density to early sixth density. It's okay if you're not familiar with those terms. Just picture the universe has a spectrum, just like the 7 colors of light. It has an evolutionary scale. Some have called them dimensions. I don't find that entirely accurate. I call them densities. And these each denote a different vibration, a different frequency, a different state of consciousness. And the human ordinary consciousness is commensurate with a third density state. You've all heard this before. It's the 3D thinking, the 3D linear mind. So, and you see a lot in the New Age community, there's talk of 4D and 5D, like start manifesting your reality from a 4D place, from a 5D place, maybe even a 6D place if you're lucky. So anyway, there's a lot of mixed concepts out there. I like to keep it as scientific as I possibly can. Hence the densities rather than dimensions, because a dimension could be anything. However, I won't go into that too deeply now. So it might sound a little woo-woo, but if you allow me to explain some other day, it will start to make more sense and why it is quite scientific, why it is quite methodical to think of evolution in terms of those densities. Each density has a primary lesson, a primary theme for that consciousness to evolve into, to learn, to grow from. And so we've all heard talk of 4D, just kind of blow your own mind open. Don't be so linear. Start thinking more non-linearly. Start thinking less without the restriction, more without the restrictions of space and time, beyond those restrictions. This is all good. It's the start of shepherding consciousness, but it's the very beginning. Why I call it shepherding consciousness, I could have called it anything. I could have called it adeptness. I could have called it awesomeness consciousness. I could have called it beyond 3D consciousness. I could have called it blue chicken consciousness. But I called it shepherding consciousness or shepherd's consciousness, usually shepherding consciousness, because the key theme throughout those densities, late third through about mid-sixth, is service to others, at least for those who are positively oriented, which you all are, pretty sure. Doesn't mean you don't have your negative tendencies, but on the whole, you are oriented, you are seeking along the line of polarity that is service to others. It's a positive polarity. So I'm limiting this session to that side, to the light side, if you will. Let's not get into the dark side. It will get too complicated for now. And it's less relevant for you guys, except to know how to recognize it and to sort of understand it and be able to navigate it and shield yourself from it in an appropriate way. But that's not the topic of the session. The topic of the session is you as a light being, essentially looking for the light, looking to share the light, looking to become more of the light of consciousness, of your true self, your potential, has as its orientation service to others. You prefer to be kind to other people instead of hateful. You prefer to be generous and give to people instead of get and greedily take or consume. If that describes you, being naturally more generous and giving and wanting to create happiness for other people and so on and so forth, and wanting to love rather than hate and judge and conquer, then you fit the description of an essentially service to others-oriented soul, aka the positive polarity, within the whole learning trajectory of the creator within this creation. Again, there's levels to this. We're all familiar with the 3D level that I just described. I'm a body inside of a physical world. Things move at a certain speed. Only this is possible, this isn't possible. Sort of Newtonian imprint. Newtonian imprinted thinking. 3D. Person. When the person begins to wake up to the fact that, hey, I exist now, and I exist now, and I exist now, and I exist now, and I exist now, no matter what I experience. I exist now, whether I'm over here or over there. Whether I feel this way or that way, I exist now, I exist now. When you begin to wake up to the spiritual component of your mind-body-spirit complex, if you will, And everyone does, and a lot of people are right now on planet Earth, are waking up to the fact that, hey, I'm not just a mind-body complex, I'm a mind-body-spirit complex. I have a spiritual component to me. I am aware, I exist. What is that? There's a sense of timelessness to it. What is this presence that knows that I am? And so on and so forth. This is the beginnings of moving into this next evolutionary phase, where the person consciousness starts to sort of crawl out of its shell, starts to expand beyond its skin line, starts to understand that it's more than just a bag of blood, that it has clarity, that it has purpose, that it has intuition, that it has the ability to be clairvoyant, to remote view, to get an intuitive sense of other people, to be of service in different ways. And that life is connected, interconnected, and that what you think and radiate will have an effect. Not only physically, but also metaphysically. Things will bounce back to you in this echo chamber of oneness. So people generally begin to wake up to a sense of interconnectedness, oneness, compassion, love, and spiritedness. And you've all been there already, or to some degree you're waking up to that at the very least. Otherwise you wouldn't be here. That's my assumption. So now that means you're effectively on the path to becoming a shepherd. There's many degrees of this sort of shepherding consciousness. But the essence of it is that you know that you're more than just a person, you're more than just a body, that essentially your consciousness, your soul does not have a location, at least not in the way that it is portrayed by your physical body. You know that your essence goes beyond just the physical body. You probably have already come to understand, believe, intuit, sense that you will not die when your physical body dies. Your existence in some way, shape, or form will remain or transfer to some other experience or state of consciousness. You've probably already come to believe that. The journey of the shepherd is long, and there's early stage shepherds and there is late stage shepherds, or you could say high-level shepherds and beginning shepherds. And not to put a judgment on this, but again, it is a journey. And at the beginning, you're waking up to all this kind of beautiful knowledge, this potential. And it starts to soften your physical consciousness. It starts to expand you beyond this solid, rigid identity of being inside of a body, inside of a physical world. And you start to see with more fluid eyes, almost more dreamlike eyes. Doesn't mean you're ungrounded, doesn't mean you're unclear, but life becomes a bit more like a dream, a bit more like your own projection in many ways, like your own canvas. Like you can interact with it through your state of consciousness, your attitude, your state of being. You're in a vibrational communion with this echo chamber of oneness, which is creation. You know you can die, so on and so forth. You start to develop a confidence. You become less and less scared of life because you become less and less conflated with the body, the physical body and its location and its limitations and its victimization and so on. And because you're expanding beyond the physical body in your understanding of yourself, you will become less and less afraid of the things that your physical body, reasonably so, would be scared of. Abandonment, death, pain, so on and so forth. But because you are becoming more and more than just a physical body in your direct awareness, not just as a New Age concept, that's a good start, but it won't take you into freedom. It won't take you into empowerment. You want to have a direct awareness, many times a day, ideally, of the fact that you're not your body. Just that alone will anchor you in a next level awareness. That alone will free you from this tendency to be afraid of whatever the body is afraid of. It will allow you to move more freely, to be clear on your sense of purpose, your calling, and to navigate from that state of consciousness, not so bogged down by, oh, but I'm over here and I don't have the money. But I'm over here and it's going to be risky. But I'm over here, and if I go over there and do this and say that and act on my calling, what will people think of thee? They might ostracize me, and I might experience sort of a social death. I don't want to disappoint or make my friends feel awkward about me. All these things come from body consciousness. They come from believing that your I amness, you, in other words, equals the body and its location in this real world. That's an assumption. There's no proof for this. There is zero evidence that the I am exists inside the body. Zero. No doctor has ever found the I am by dissecting a body. Oh, look, here's the I am. Here's that person. Never happened, never gonna happen. Not even with the most complex brain scanning technology. There are centers which light up when a certain sensation is experienced, when a certain state of mind is emphasized. The body will respond to that, like a receiver, like an antenna, like a radio station. It will produce a translation of that vibration. But you will never be able to find the I am inside the brain, or inside the heart, or inside the feet, or inside the bladder. You can't, because it's not there. Clearly, because it's observing the body. And how can that which knows the body be inside the body? So you see, the idea that you're inside the body is an assumption. It's reinforced by your senses, very convincingly so, I would agree. The eyes make it look like you're behind the eyes, seeing everything outside of yourself over there. And it's hitting your retina over here, and I am therefore over here. So the senses are like poison, my friends. Pretend you're blind, deaf, and you can't taste a single thing, and you'll be much happier. Who are you without your senses? Go there, explore that state. Explore the I am without taking any advice from your senses. What then is left of you if you are not your hearing, your sight, and so on? Are you not still there? Do you not still exist? Even ignore the blackness and the numbness that is there as a result of not listening to the senses. That also is not you. You're not the blackness. So do not fear being blind and deaf in this exercise, in this imaginary exercise, because the result of not using your senses is also not what you are. Because that's still produced by the senses. If you close your eyes, that's still the eyes seeing darkness. If you stop hearing, that's still the ears not hearing. Equally, that's not you. What is the I am? What is you? Where do you exist? In which sensation, in which bodily symptom do you reside? Or is your awareness that which hears my voice right now? Free to be as it is, without a location, without the assumption that it is located somewhere in creation. Can it just be aware of its own existence, and thus see through the idea of the body? And there's a spectrum to how freely you're able to perceive this. And towards some of the higher levels, it's approaching what I would call mirror consciousness, where you can truly experience yourself, even while you're in the subway in New York City, as without a body. Where you can experience yourself as the oneness of all things, without being on psychedelic drugs, without being in your meditation chamber, just by pure knowing, just by the clarity, the self-evidence of reality versus the illusion that you bought into before. When you see through the illusion, reality is all that's left. There's not three kinds of things. There's only illusion and reality. Give up the illusion, and what remains and shines forth automatically is reality. This is not a thing you do. It's not a muscle that you train. This is reality. You have to simply unbelief, see through the assumptions that you've made about I am this, and I am that, and I am here, and I am now instead of then, and so on and so forth. This requires practice, requires clarity. Yes, requires a bit of work, perhaps, but it's worth it. And that's not the only thing. If this is not juicy enough for you, that's fine. We can take a more conceptual route. We can think in terms of the mind-body-spirit complex. We can think in terms of, hey, I'm not a consciousness inside of a body. I am a body inside of a consciousness. Or I am not a body with a spirit. I'm spirit with a body. We can think along those lines, and that will help us as well. But more and more, I would like you to try to really see it. Not with your eyes, with your consciousness. To really see the truth of your I amness. Because this and this alone will truly liberate you through this remembrance that gets activated when you spend a bit of your attention on the I am. Curious, what is the I am? Let me not assume that I know what it is. Let me actually look at, not with my eyes, but with my consciousness. Let me look at this feeling of knowing that I exist. What is that? It's always with me. I might as well spend some time getting to know it. Otherwise, I go through life having no clue what I am, but I proclaim to be this and that, and I feel this way, and you called me that, and therefore you are this, and then. But if you're asked by the stranger who offended you, and you're asked by them, do you know what is you? Could you answer them without any concept, without any word? Could you immediately step into the knowingness of what you actually are and see it as clearly as you've ever seen anything before, and let that be your answer? Or are you too swallowed up by, no, but I'm this person and you said that, and who are you to ask me if I know who I am? You don't even know who you are. Which state would you like to embody? Reality or illusion? Person consciousness, or at least shepherding consciousness, and maybe mirror consciousness, as we'll get to in a minute. Again, I've called it shepherding consciousness because as we begin to awaken ourselves as an individual on a spiritual journey, knowing that we have some kind of a purpose, a calling, a mission in this life, we came here for learning, for a reason, to balance out certain distortions, to wake up into greater love and compassion and clarity and power and wisdom and all that. So we get that for ourselves. We start joining a yoga class, we start listening to frequency songs and music, we start joining Bentinho Live, things like that. We are an individual awakening to its spiritual journey, and we're a new kind of consumer. There's lots of CDs out there, and lots of this and that. So it can become a lifestyle. But it's good, it's a good foundation, but what that leads into is shepherding consciousness. Inevitably. Now, this may not happen for everyone in this lifetime, but for you guys, it can happen today if it hadn't happened already. So again, why have I called it shepherding consciousness? Because it has this component of, it's not just about me on my yoga mat, listening to my yoga nidra music. It is also, if not more so, about bringing my awakening, expanding upon it and bringing it in to the whole. Being of service to others. Following my calling is not about manifesting that house I want, although that's a perfectly fine part of your expression of your calling. But it's not why you came to earth. It's not to have that particular house or piece of chocolate or sip of wine or beautiful, perfect partner. It's not why you came to earth, because you had all these things already before you did. These are just nice, they're pleasantries, they're nourishing, they can boost your energy a little bit. For a little while. But that's not why you came here. You came here with a purpose, with a mission, with an intention that was so strong, it was strong enough for you to agree to spend 9 months in a loving but very, very tight prison and somehow worm your way through a birth canal and make it into this world where your senses are bombarded and your only lifeline to anything nourishing is snipped immediately. And if you're a boy and you're unlucky enough to be born in certain religions, then something else gets snipped too. That you're willing to do that, to go to prison for 9 months, a loving prison, don't get me wrong. I don't mean any offense by this, but you get the point. To grow inside of a container, inside of a location, where yes, you are hopefully lovingly held and nourished, but you are mute and unable to move or navigate out of that. And then at some point, you leave that, which you've now gotten used to, and you're bombarded by delight and the stimulus and the senses and other people's vibrations and this and that. It's not a pleasant journey. Being born is not a joy. Now, you might experience it as a joyful, beautiful encounter, and by all means, please do. And it is a miracle. But it's not all roses and sunshine for the incarnate self. We get used to it, we normalize it, and it has a beautiful purpose behind it. But the action itself is not the most pleasant thing you've ever experienced. Let's put it that way. So, why would you go through that? And then on top of all that, kind of forgetting who you are and being indoctrinated by other human minds that also don't know who they are. And then going to school because your parents would like you to go to school and you don't really know anything else that you want to study, or maybe you think you do know what you want to study, but maybe it is to please your parents anyway. And then you grow into this and you start dating and you start hating and you start loving and you start losing yourself and you start, what's so fun about this? Am I stupid? What's so deeply, profoundly worthwhile and enjoyable about this? Have you not suffered more than you have laughed and enjoyed? Even when you laughed, did you not suffer underneath? Most of the time? As Buddha said, rule number 1, life is suffering. And there is a way out of this suffering. So my point with this is, you did not come here for the pleasures of this life because they're very, very slim. The pleasure of the bliss in spirit that is ongoing does not compare to the bliss of you chewing down with your sack of blood on a piece of chocolate and then having an orgasm in your neurons that suggests that this is a beautiful thing and you should do it more often. And this is, you feel so good right now. My friends, do you really believe you came here for that reason? It's not worth it. Doesn't even break zero, break even on the spreadsheet of pros and cons of incarnating. Okay? There is only one pro on the side of incarnation, and that is, I'm going to learn what I wish to learn, what I need to learn, and I'm going to share what I know with others. That's it. Everything else about your physical life is on the cons list of the spreadsheet of your incarnation, and you were well aware of this prior to incarnation. All these cons, like chocolate, yes, it's a con. Now, it might seem like a pro once you're here, but that's how bad the other cons are. That chocolate seems like heaven, even though it's actually on the negative list of things. But comparatively to all the other human experiences, it's heavenly. That's how bad the situation is of incarnation in 3D. The only thing on the positive side of things is I'm going to learn what I need to learn, and I can learn it here better and faster than nowhere else in this galaxy right now. And while I'm on my way to knowing myself, I'm going to express myself to others in the most radiant, beautiful, loving way as I possibly can. I'm going to assist others simultaneously. That's it. That's why you came here. No other reason. You did not come for the chocolate. I promise you that. It was not worth it to you. Yes, enjoy it while you're here. Fine. My point with all this, again, is, my main point with all this, I'm obviously being a little bit silly and facetious, but it's not entirely without truth. My point here is to help remind you even more that you did not come here for all the things you think you might be chasing at the moment, unconsciously or consciously. You did not come here for the beautiful house, for the beautiful car, for the beautiful wife or husband. You really didn't. May you attract those experiences along the way? Absolutely. It's part of your right. And I think in the next session, I'll talk more about this, the manifestational side of things. So in about 2 weeks. But before we go there, in next session, I want you to have an overview of the path and why you are here. I want you to remember why you are here, and it is with great purpose that you came here. You did not come for pleasure, although have lots of it if you can, why not? But don't chase it. Don't prioritize it. Because before you know it, you'll forget why you came here. And then you have to do it all over again and consider the same spreadsheet. Chocolate is on the negative side. How could I forgot that? It was the most heavenly, positive thing in my life at that moment. And I even sold my soul for it a little bit. Again, in this case, chocolate just represents pleasure, chasing experiences, chasing 3D material things. Again, nothing wrong with it. Look, I'm wearing a suit. I'm smoking a $10 cigar. I made my own nice little coffee in the way that I wanted, okay? I've got this fancy iPad here that I can read your questions off of. I've got this setup with a couple cameras, got beautiful people around me helping me do all this stuff. I've got a rich life in many ways, also very simple in many ways. But there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with buying a nice suit or having your chocolate and your wine and your sex and your pleasure. But, my friends, always remember why you came here. Otherwise, you'll have to remember that again at a later time. You have to reactivate it. So prioritize. The shepherd prioritizes. This is all me demonstrating what shepherding consciousness requires of the person. Did you get that? I was demonstrating in a facetious manner, symbolically, what it requires for the person to become a shepherd. Now, the person often views this as sacrifice, a combination of inspiration, but also sacrifice. It's the same thing. You're inspired to grow up. You're inspired to share with others. You're inspired to become purely, more and more purely of service to others, to purify yourself and to devote yourself to the benefit of the whole while you continue to learn and awaken and investigate yourself and harmonize yourself and empower yourself, but all within the vein of benefiting others, being generous, being radiant, helping out of love. That is inspiring to a lot of you. And you will reach a point where that inspiration will ask you to make a sacrifice. You've probably already been there in some ways, maybe many times. This is not really a sacrifice, but the mind, the remnants of the person consciousness, will perceive it as such. Example, I want to live my calling. I want to be of service to others. But why can't I also have this perfect partnership? Right? It's inspiring. You want to live this cosmic life. You want to be a spiritual being, sharing light with the world and singing and expressing and teaching and building new communities or what have you, educating, or just being loving, just being radiant. But you also want this and this and this and this and this. And at some point, it seems like your inspiration is calling you forth into a sacrifice. So that is part of the journey of becoming an ever higher level shepherd, becoming ever purer in your service to others, balancing love, passion, and the wisdom or light. More and more, these get balanced. They bounce off of each other. Love and wisdom. I'll reserve this for another session, the nuances of that. But this is part of the shepherd's journey. And it can help you greatly to remember that you did not come here for the pleasures and that pleasure is overrated. If only everyone here on this call would diminish the degree to which they value pleasure by about 50 to 80%, you'd be a much freer entity and your spiritual journey would speed up. Your true bliss, your true pleasure, your true contentment, your true joy would rise by about that much, 50 to 80% as well. Because they're pretty proportionate to each other inversely. The more you seek for pleasure, the more you forget yourself and the pleasure that exists. The pleasure of God looking through your eyes, applauding you for your purity, your emptiness, your service, your devotion, your surrender, and your faith. Versus forgetting all that and chasing the chocolate. Ideally, the chocolate along with the wife or husband and the house. and a tree in your yard and the extra acre plot. Because why not? Once pleasure turns painful, you are a free man. In your mind. I'm not saying in reality, although that too. But when in your mind, pleasure takes on the shape, the hue of pain, you're maturing. And you are at the threshold of awakening and being able to actually hear source within you. And I can tell you, there's no pleasure that beats that.
Massaro University is a vibrant online community dedicated to accelerating your awakening and activating your purpose for the benefit of all. Join live sessions with Bentinho and workshops led by experienced facilitators. Deepen your wisdom, empowerment, and self-knowledge, and experience life-changing shifts week after week. At Massaro University, finding like-hearted seekers is easy and inevitable. Lifelong friendships and a shared purpose fuel profound personal and collective growth. Create your free account today at massaro.university and step into a community that's designed to elevate every aspect of your life.
So part of becoming a shepherd, it's a sobering experience to the person. It's both expansive and inspiring, like I said, because you're going to expand beyond yourself, current self, and your worldview and your limitations. You're becoming a spiritually imbued human being. And that's inspiring and empowering and joyful and blissful and powerful in many ways. And at the same time, a part of that process, the other side of the coin of that process, is that it's a sobering, humbling, purifying experience to the person assumption that you've grown up with. This is why a sense of calling and honor and purpose and duty can be so useful, because those are your golden threads. Those are your guidelines when things get a little tricky, when you get challenged, when your person consciousness begs you for conforming, begs you to conform, to agree with its pleads and its suggestion. But what if you could be free of all that? What if you could purify yourself by your own will and give it up? Just give it up, just give it up, just give it up, just give it up. Whenever you struggle, you're always struggling towards pleasure of some kind. Why not give up the struggle itself and also give up the attachment to the pleasure? What happens right there and then? Like I said, when you let go of yourself, who's there to catch you? It's God. Mm-mm, mm-mm, mm-mm. It's God right there. You can't hear God when you're obsessed with yourself. You see, the person is obsessed with itself, completely revolves around this bubble of I have this physical body in this real Newtonian world, limited resources and all that. And this is me, and these are other selves. It's no way to live, not spiritually. It's painful. Chocolate can't cover that up. Maybe for a split second, because it is quite good, chocolate. But only for a split second. What is your chocolate? What's your golden chain? The chain that keeps you bound to an idea with attachment and fear and keeps you anchored in this perception that you are over here, you don't have it yet, and you need to get it. But you idolize it. You still see it as pleasurable. What if you were in a prison and you knew that you could not have chocolate for the rest of your life? Would you still think of desiring chocolate as a pleasurable thing? Would you still think of chocolate as a pleasurable thing? You know you can't have it, you're in prison, you'll never have it. Is the craving for chocolate, and again, this is symbolic, right? Pick your chocolate. But is this craving for chocolate, if you know you can't have it, is it not painful? Would you rather not think of chocolate, forget chocolate ever existed? Wouldn't you be free instantly? At least from that burden. You'd be in prison. Let's say all you could think about is this chocolate. Like, oh, I want to get out of prison. I want to go here. I want to go back to my wife. I want to go back to my husband. I want to go back to my chocolate. But what if you never get to? Wouldn't then the letting go of what you think is pleasurable be the most pleasurable thing you could ever do? You get the point of this analogy, I hope. It's not about becoming like a monk in prison. It doesn't have to be like that. But I'm saying when you're chasing pleasure and you're suffering, but you don't notice it because you've put pleasure on a pedestal. You've put pleasure in some way, shape, or form, whether it's chocolate, a relationship, an unfulfilled desire, or even some kind of a spiritual state that you're seeking. Your golden chains. They keep you bound, but they're made of gold, so you don't notice. The moment you cut those chains, the moment you see, wait a second, underneath this very thin layer of gold, it's actually not even real gold. It was just put on there with a marker by a toddler. Toddler being your own mind. And underneath that is just a rusty old chain with sharp little edges. Now you see that pleasure and the chase of it all for what it is, like Buddha saw it, suffering. Now, don't worry. You will not become a boring person by accepting this. You will free yourself. And you will start to hear God, because as long as you chase pleasure as if pleasure is God, you're deaf. You might hear with the ears, but you're deaf. You might see with the eyes, but you're blind. You might taste a chocolate, but you haven't tasted anything yet. Choose bliss over pleasure. And bliss is not in any particular experience. So you can forget about that thing that maybe you associated with bliss as well. Again, I'm giving you some of the crucible here. I'm giving you some of the gatekeepers type of energy that you will meet at the edge of every threshold of shepherding consciousness. The more you can see that it is inspiring, the less it will feel like a sacrifice. But the more you're approaching it from your concepts as a person, and the more you've pedestalized pleasure and bliss as being these external experiences and manifestations, the more difficult it's going to be to leave them at the gate and actually walk through into the next courtyard of these concentric circles, these orbits of purity and liberation. Because purity is liberation. And liberation is true pleasure. So you're not seeking the wrong thing, you're just seeking it in the wrong place. The shepherd knows this, especially the higher level shepherd, maybe not the flaunting beginning neophyte, which is just trying to manifest a house and kind of be of service to others on the side. But I'm talking higher level shepherding as you move from 4D to 5th to 6th density consciousness. It becomes more and more about becoming the field. No longer as a person on a fun spiritual manifestational journey and look at me, I'm singing for other people and I'm being so of service to them and oh my God, I'm so awesome. Like, look at this. Oh my God, spirit is moving me. Yay, I'm so of service and I'm enjoying my life. And hey, don't get me wrong. This is better than 3D consciousness, much better. But there's a limit to this. There's delusion in this. There's forgetfulness, there's pain in this, still covered up as pleasure and love and joy and bliss. It's the hippie, it's the archetype of the hippie. Lost in its experiences, in the name of spirituality and awakening, and lost in tie-dye t-shirts in the name of pure consciousness. Oh, we're all pure consciousness, brother. Oh, I feel you. I'll say no more. Have some chocolate. This is healing chocolate. I made it myself. It's organic. It's entirely organic. It's 98% cacao. And it's blessed, my friend. In the name of God. That is very early. I wouldn't even call that a shepherd yet. I don't know what to call that. Sort of in between phase. But it's when the person begins to awaken to a shepherding potential, but it's still filtered through the eccentricities of the person. And some of the people that I just embodied, they're actually very high level and pure. So there are exceptions, but you get the point. You get the caricature that I'm painting here. For the purpose of learning, not for the purpose of judgment, obviously. And a few laughs, why not? Have some chocolate, why not? So as long as you prioritize why you are here and what is most important to you, you can have all the pleasures in the world, but they won't distract you. You can have all the temptations in the world, but they won't distract you. The moment you forget why you are here and you start seeing God as that pleasure, as that manifestation, you start seeking for source and fulfillment in those things, you're lowering yourself to person consciousness. And don't worry, you will know. It might take a little while as you've normalized it and other people normalize it, so nobody will point it out unless you have a friend like me. And if so, awesome. But if you don't, then nobody will point this out to you. So you can blend in again for a long time. But inevitably, once your soul has tasted the true pleasure and the fulfillment of purity and selflessness and open consciousness and direct awakening, in connection, communion, listening to, hearing, feeling, experiencing God, source, intelligence, the miracle itself, I am. Once you've tasted it sufficiently, you can't go back for very long. Life will slap you in the face like you did the worst thing ever just by eating chocolate. Have you noticed? The little things will be magnified. And you will see this in my reflection. The closer you grow into orbit with sort of the mission and the team, and the more I need to rely on you, and the more the mission is entrusted to you, the more every little distortion that used to be totally fine and blended in with all the other distortions and wobbles, I'll be your magnifying glass. So it will seem silly sometimes even. You'll be like, what? Well, I didn't mean it that way. It's not a big deal, right? Nothing really happened. But I'll come down with a little hammer or a big hammer and I'll let you know. And after that, it's all fun and games. No hard feelings whatsoever. But when I'm giving that reflection, naturally, it's to zoom in on this single little wobble. And the only way to do that sometimes is to magnify it like it's the worst thing you've ever done. Whereas if you were to say that to someone of a 3D consciousness, they say like, I do that all the time. That's like the least of my sins. Right? But the more we purify ourselves, the more specific and precise and the harder this school becomes. But also the more fortified you are in the internal pleasure of God. The more capable, and you will not want to sell that for anything else. You will not want to swap that out for an easier life. In fact, it's not really an easier life to go back. It really isn't. But you've noticed with yourself, when you become more precise, when you know more, you have to act more or better. Because when you know better and you don't act according to that, the slaps get incrementally harder, no? And this starts as a feeling of, maybe I'm a little off, I don't know. Start to doubt yourself. But it leads into physicalized, materialized, catalytic manifestations if you don't listen. The longer you don't correct yourself energetically, spiritually, once you know better, the more sensitive you will be to those little slaps. The slaps of the Creator, the slaps of life, the slaps of your higher self. And this is love. This is a friendly little slap. But yeah, if you don't listen, the friendly little slap gets a little bit harder. I found that life works this way, and I've seen it confirmed, heard it confirmed by many others, so I'm sure you can relate to this concept. But this is also good because this is evolution, you see? When you're a total mess and you're a total human consciousness, just not knowing left from right when it comes to your I amness, why you are here. Just completely absorbed in what you see and hear and feel and know and what other people tell you. A slap is not going to do much. It's just going to blend in with the rest of your objective experiences. You're not going to be able to discern. So life doesn't usually slap you more in the face when you're already lost, because you're getting slapped around enough by your own lostness. But the more precise you become, the more awake you become, the more in ownership of yourself, your power, and what you know you become. And the better you know what is real, what is not, what is purposeful, what isn't, what should be prioritized, what shouldn't, what is appropriate, what isn't, and so on, aligned and isn't. The more you know that, the more you start resonating, scintillating, energetically, vibrationally, with the consciousness of purity and clarity and precision. Now, when you step out of that even a little bit, now the slap makes sense, because now you can hear it. Because it's maybe the first slap you've gotten in weeks. Whereas when you're down there in the muck of it, life itself is slap enough, and it's slap left and right and left and right and left and right, and you have no sense of what's going on, and you can't extract any guidance out of it. But the clearer you are, the more awake you are, the more you can utilize this guidance. You get a little slap, and you realize, oh, wait a second, I slipped up. I slipped out of my stream for a bit. Thank you. Let me get back. I appreciate the slap. You start appreciating the slaps. Because what are the slaps? They're traffic lights. You're about to get yourself into a major car crash. You might not like the red light. You might not want to hit the brakes. But thank God you did, because you would have been killed or worse. Right? Again, extreme analogy, but you get the point. To dramatize the guidance a little bit, guidance, the little slaps in your life, especially if you can extract guidance from them in their early stages, if you can learn to listen with your imagination and your intuition and your meditation and your contemplation, if your intention is sincerely to learn above all else, to listen above all else, the slaps will be little blessings, preventing greater disasters and giving you what you want, the learning that you came here for. So the shepherd has to be more and more in tune with themselves, with their own guidance, with their own higher self, with their own nudges. They can't justify everything anymore. They can't gamble it all away and say, everything is God anyway. No, they got to become precision. With love and faith. It's not a mechanical precision. It's not like a robot. But it is mathematical in a way. It is precise. You can listen through precision and mathematics if you understand that language. But that's a lesser way to listen. But it is helpful. The ability to interpret guidance more accurately. But what's really going to help you to listen and extract the guidance early on is simply that, the love for God, the love for learning. Then you will listen through faith and intuition. And ideally, you have them in harmony. And one will lead more to the other ultimately, and the other will lead more to that one. But you'll become better and better at being able to listen. What's the feedback I'm getting here from my life? The nuances of it. Every moment, actually. Now, don't go crazy like, what does this mean? What does this mean? Oh my God, I see triple rainbows. Keep it normal. Again, spirituality isn't weird. It shouldn't be weird. It should be the most scientific thing ever. It should be praised by all of humanity, and it will be, I give you my word. But don't make it harder in the meantime by being too out there, by being too crazy. Just stay sane. Blend in with the normies. Let the spiritual coup happen naturally, organically, at a pace they can understand. Blend in a little bit. Why not? Don't go like, hallelujah. Just be present. Listen. Talk shit with them if they're talking shit with you. What's up, bro? What's going on? How's your day going? Well, I never thought you'd say that. Why not? How's it going? Be normal, blend in. Hide your spirituality. Less and less you'll have to. But for now, hide your spirituality, because it's also a practice of self-containment, self-composure, and it's checking in with yourself. Am I being spiritual just because it's some kind of a weird fetish I have, like some lifestyle thing that I adore, some identity I can get out of it? Or is spirituality actually knowing the unified nature of all things and seeing the potential of other beings and seeing how they're suffering and having a natural compassionate desire to alleviate that suffering in the best, most relatable way I possibly can, regardless of myself? Can I disappear into the act of blending like a chameleon in the present moment, whoever I am with, and up it by just 20% of what's normal to them, but not by 180%? Can I up it by 20, 30% of what's normal to them? Can I radiate it just that much more? Without having to say namaste per se, I can also say, hey dude, what's going on? And still radiate the potential that they are. Still see in them the love of the Creator. Still nourish in them that soothing presence, which is true pleasure and takes away the pain of chasing pleasure as if it's actually pleasure when it's actually pain. You, through your presence, can do this. You don't need to be crazy. You don't need to be spiritual. You don't need to be a wacko. You don't need to be out there. You don't need to lose consciousness twice a day and faint because you're so spiritual. I faint, but it's because of the higher vibrations. No, you faint because you're a moron. Just control yourself. Demand from yourself that you are present, that you are under your own control. Spirituality and control walk hand in hand. They are not opposites. But it's not control of the numbers. It's not control of linear reality. It's self-composure. It's discipline of where your attention goes. And acting to the best of your knowledge at every moment with honor. These are some of the things of what it requires to become a high-level shepherd. And this is what I'm most interested in teaching, because ultimately, I'll teach other things because, again, it's about speaking everyone's language and filling in all the gaps so anyone can join in on this sort of holistic, universal system of understanding that's not religion-based or culture-based. It's just the mathematics, the science, the direct experience of what spirituality actually is. Life itself, knowing itself, waking up to itself, expressing itself, being of service to itself. It's very simple at the end of the day. It seems very complex when explained. So yes, I fill in those gaps, but what I really love to teach is this purification. It purifies me every time I talk about it. It's a stream of devotion and surrender. And God shines ever the clearer at the end of every such a session. And there's no greater reward than that. I could teach how to manifest things, but then what? You have your house. You'll be lonely and depressed and soulless in your house. Well, have fun. You're eating your chocolate, soulless. Well, have fun. Godless. Godless chocolate munching parties. Yay. Bring your best friends. Watch your favorite movie together. Yay. Soulless watch parties. Why? But if you have soul, if you have God, if you have devotion, then watch all the movies you want. Eat all the chocolate you want. But you see, the priority, the sacrifice needs to be made. And it's simultaneously that sacrifice of self is self-honesty. You will notice the first time that you truly sacrifice yourself, not conceptually, not like, oh, I'm a victim, but I'm going to give you the money anyway. That's bullshit. That's fucking horseshit. That's you being in your own mind. That's not devotion. Okay? Let me be clear on that. The first time you really sacrifice yourself, where you let go of feeling like a victim, that's sacrifice. And it's simultaneously your reward, you see. Because the moment you let go of being the victim, to the deepest level, like completely, it's the moment you'll be honest with yourself. And you can see yourself for the first time ever, because you're willing now. You're courageous enough. And this is the crucible, this is the requirement. This is what you have to toss in the fire to become a reliable shepherd, upon which a mission like this could rely, for instance, upon which the many, many billions of beings calling for clarity and love and liberation are waiting. Everyone's waiting for the Messiah, no? Ancient, long, archetypal story in all of our cultures. And it is, even in Western culture, it is there. It's just hidden. It's not called that way. We've called it many different things. We've called it capitalism, communism. But we're all waiting for the Messiah. We're all waiting for our Savior. Even the independent woman who bashes the old Disney stories, the new Snow White, the powerful independent woman who doesn't need a man to save her. She's most in need of a man to save her out of all the women. Even that is waiting for the Messiah. Like, I don't need a man. That's waiting for the Messiah. You don't translate it that way. It seems weird to call it that. Because isn't that great? You're such a powerful, independent woman, and like, you don't need that fluffy stuff. You don't need that man to save you. That's you craving to be saved. You're just more foolish than the one that at least admits that they're needy and that they want that. So every expression we have as a human consciousness from a lack-based point of view is us waiting to be saved. We've just covered up with all kinds of ideas. And it's no different ultimately than the seeking impulse of the Creator within you. You do want to be saved. That is the seeking impulse. You are in a sort of prison of your own making. When you are, not all the time perhaps, because it is of your own making. It's not a real prison. But when you are in that prison of victimization, you can't be fully honest with yourself. You don't know what you want and what you don't want, what's good for you and what isn't. And you are in a state of needing saving. Now, can you do that yourself? Yes, in a way you can. Not everyone can. And we all learn from each other, and we all need teachers in some way, shape, or form. It might be your pet. It doesn't have to be me. But we do need to be saved, and we know that. And it's not a bad thing. It is part of the nature of things. But we have distorted this with the waiting for a Savior externally. And the shepherd needs to find that strength, needs to find that Savior within themselves, not anti-anything. So not like the independent woman that doesn't want Prince Charming when she really does want nothing more, but she's lying to herself. It's not the false, masculinated, fake independent woman thing, as an example. It's not that. The shepherd is one who goes through the sacrifice of wanting that saving principle to happen from outside, through the chocolate. Yes, also through the Prince Charming and the beautiful wife or whatever it is. These also need to be sacrificed. Doesn't mean you can't materialize these experiences. Again, one thing doesn't mean another, but it means that internally, the shepherd has enough faith in God, enough faith in what there truly are. I'm talking pretty high-level shepherd here, okay? Not the beginning like, hey, what's going on? And oh, we're so happy, let's start a community. I'm talking high-level shepherd, usually the people you don't hear of, okay? They are pure servants. They think more about humanity on a day-to-day basis than about their own life. In order to penetrate that level, they're also much more satisfied because God is with them and they are with God. They've let go of themselves, and therefore all there is left is reality. Speaking quite clearly. And nothing beats this satisfaction. So the high-level shepherd will go through phases of self-sacrifice, where they have to sacrifice the remnants of their victim consciousness, where in the most challenging situations, when they've given it their best effort, maybe even in the name of being a shepherd, and yet there is no oasis at the end of this desert. There's just more desert. What do? The 3D princess in you would like to be saved by Prince Charming. Nothing wrong with that. I prefer that over the 3D one that I just embodied, where they want that, but they deny that, and they become masculine. For instance, again, it applies to both genders in different ways, but you get the image, the idea. To be honest with what you need and what you want, but as a shepherd, you're going to have to learn to give yourself what you need through faith and by sacrificing any sense of victimhood. Right? To use Jesus' example, or at least a symbolism of it, he was supposedly a servant of God, right? The servant of God, according to the followers. The only servant of God, according to the blind followers. So let's suppose he was the Son of God. He got nailed to a cross. Thank you for your service. How does that work? Why does supposedly the purest servant of God, in human garb, get crucified, nailed to a cross for his services? Where's the oasis here? It's bad enough to be born 2,000 years ago in the stinking heat and walk on sandals all day, and not have a decent chair to sit on anywhere on planet Earth. But then to surrender to that, to be of service to others, even in the non-pleasure. Chocolate didn't exist yet, I don't think. Jesus lived without chocolate. All right? Let's be clear. And he still did what he did. Now you can do what I'm inspiring you to do and have your chocolate too. You're lucky. Like I said, you're spiritually privileged. Jesus just had sandals, sweat and tears, and desert. And he still committed himself to pure service to others. And somewhere along that trajectory, he got crucified. How's that work? Who wants to be a shepherd? And the symbolism of this story, at least in context to this session, is you're going to have experiences like that. You're going to be challenged. You're going to be having moments, most likely, maybe not. Maybe it's not necessary for you. But likely, you're going to have moments when you're committing to becoming a shepherd, to truly embodying these teachings at a high level. And I haven't even gotten to mirror consciousness yet. You're going to likely have experiences that will challenge you, that will make you feel lonely, that will bring out every ounce of person consciousness left in you, that will force you to vomit it up, so to speak. It might feel violent, it might feel aggressive, it might feel unfair. And the shepherd, if they wish to graduate to a higher level shepherd, and glimpses, this is beginning to get into mirror consciousness territory, they would accept the lack of an oasis, the lack of getting what they want, and the presence of injustice, aloneness, misunderstanding, and nothing of pleasure in the foreseeable future or surroundings whatsoever. This is how shepherds are born. Welcome to the crucible. At the other end of this challenge, if you've succeeded, so to speak, you are now a reliable, trustworthy vessel of the collective desire and mission of awakening. So it's simultaneously highly inspiring as well as seemingly sacrificial of self. And in a sense, there's no better way to sum up what it requires to become a shepherd, to be purified. But again, remember, the pleasures you seek in your 3D life are finally found at the other end of this challenge, this purification. It's actually what you already seek. So if this doesn't sound appealing to you, think again. It's exactly what you seek. It doesn't sound appealing to you because you seek this. See if you can get that. You seek what I'm talking about, the pleasure on the other side of this. But because you seek that pleasure, you would reject this opportunity or this path or way. Because you seek that pleasure, this does not seem like it's that pleasure. But it is. It may take you many more years, many more lifetimes. And I don't intend to speak for you on your behalf or know what your journey is like. It's entirely up to you. But in my faith, conviction, clarity, experience, this is universal. The person moves into shepherding consciousness, which, don't get me wrong, for the most part, it's deeply joyful and loving and beautiful. But while you have personal remnants left, it will also feel challenging and sacrificial, at least from time to time, periodically. So you will be challenged to let go of the old self concept, the old self sense altogether, and purify, cleanse your I am by means of service to others, service to God, surrender to the whole. It's the fastest, most intuitive, practical way for human beings because we are dumb. We are really, really dumb on purpose. We can't remember usually who we are, why we are here, what we have lived, all the nuances of that. We are quite dumb. Just physically limited. Therefore, the sure way to liberation is devotion and surrender, because that we can do, dumb or intelligent. And when I say dumb, I just mean relatively. Obviously, we have more brain power than a frog, but on the scale of universal consciousness, our brains can't compute. Okay, so we can't smart our way through it, but we can all surrender our way through it. That's why I say this is the surest way to liberation. This is why I emphasize service to others so much in the entire architecture of also Massaro University, for instance. And we also have the shepherding group or peer. It's about, including team, there's about 50 people in there right now. And just training them at this level to be pure, magnifying those little distortions, bringing it out. Clear communication, becoming more and more like a team, and all with the intention. So those are the shepherds in training as they're currently referenced in the university. For now, we're working with this group to get them team ready, or at least of that level. Doesn't mean everyone will make that level or become part of the team. There's no guarantees. There are shepherds in training. But the intention behind all this is for them to really learn, not learn even, but to purify themselves so that they can be genuinely of service to others, especially within the Massaro University ecosphere. To pay it forward and to inspire other people to become adepts and to become shepherds and of the mission, not just within the membership technicalities, but like as actual beings in their lives. And the shepherd is the imperfect mirror. So the person is no mirror, it's just a person. Imagine a physical body, just a physical person standing there in front of you. Now a shepherd has before their physical body, so to speak, if the physical body represents their person, their individuated point of view, the shepherd has sort of a see-through mirror in front of them so that everyone on the other side of that mirror sees a mirror, sees themselves, but the shepherd sees through the mirror, like one of those FBI windows. So the shepherd has the first version of this, but it's a little wobbly. This mirror is a little wobbly. So they will be of a mirroring nature to others. They won't just be a person. The person has no mirror, has no purpose in being other than to gratify itself, essentially, and to care and love based on association and brain connections and just exposure to other human beings. Why do you not care, by the way, as much about the Indian child you've never met? Why do you care more about your own child again? Oh yeah, no reason. Just the fact that your hormones are exposed to theirs and neurons are firing up at the same time and you feel personally more engaged with them. But what's the difference between your child and this Indian dude you've never met, this 8-year-old Indian kid? Or from wherever, Mongolian, or some other American, European kid. Why? Is that real love? Not saying you don't really love your child, but isn't it personal? Food for thought. Anyway, so the person, sure, reflects and loves and has community experiences, but they don't have this mature self-composure intentionality with their interactions just yet. You know? They're just themselves. They're as they appear. What they say is what they believe. What they say is what they think. How they act is who they are. The shepherd becomes more mature, becomes wiser with practice, with awakening, and is able to serve other people. And that's the analogy of having this mirror in front of them. They can see through it. They see you, but you don't see them. You see yourself. You think you see them, but you're actually looking at your own reflection in the mirror. Now, the shepherd, at least especially the lower levels, is a very wobbly mirror. So other people will see themselves reflected in you, and you'll be a little bit of a mystery to them because they can't quite directly go through that mirror. It's a little bit see-through from their angle. They see that you're there, but there's also this display of you being of service to them. The higher that purity and intentionality is, and the less you are yourself as a person, the more that mirror becomes close to flawless, at which point other people will see themselves, no longer you. And that would be commensurate with mirror consciousness. So the shepherd is the imperfect mirror. The mirror would be the perfected mirror, meaning that there is the person behind the mirror kind of disappears. And there's just a mirror. So now you can't actually know a mirror being unless you become one. Because you're standing in front of this mirror and all you're seeing is the flawless image of yourself. Now you will think it's them. Right now you think you're listening to me, but you're not. You're seeing yourself. Big disclaimer, this has to organically unfold. This cannot be adopted as a cool concept that your person runs with and becomes a mirror being. You can try, but you'll get slapped in the face. Don't worry. As life purifies you, as you embrace those little slaps and challenges, as you let go more and more of your personal ambition, your mirror becomes pure, yourself becomes more and more transparent, and you become more and more like God in action. And when you're really in the mirror state, and there's degrees to that too, in a sense of intensity. And when you're intensely in a mirror state, completely absorbed in it, there's no self whatsoever. No personal self whatsoever. No individual self whatsoever. There is only the reflection of the collective. That's all that exists then. That's the only shape that consciousness has. It no longer is an individual that's trying to be of service, that's shepherding, that's acting, that's learning from its mistakes, that's balancing the nuances. In an intensified, complete absorption mirror state being, there is only the collective, or in that case, in that moment, the person in front of you. There is no self. Your whole consciousness is filled up with the situation at hand, and you know exactly what you need to know when you need to know it to be of most service. So it's like a mirror without any FBI agent standing behind in the booth anymore. All there is the students or the collective and the mirror. Very rare state. I'm not in it all the time, not in this to this degree of absorption. But I have access to it at will, and I intensify it and de-intensify it based on what's going on. and where my attention is needed, what seems relevant, what I'm exploring myself in some way, shape, or form. But that's what it's like. It's essentially the God state. Well, it is the God state, but then the mirror aspect is how it expresses itself towards the world inside the illusion. So the mirror being is essentially one with God, absorbed in the God state, knowing itself as the essential consciousness of all things, not as any particular thing anymore. There's no identification with anything other than its own beingness. And in this true resonance, which is clear, not personally hijacked, it is as it is. It's the suchness of life itself, free of self. What happens, how that expresses itself in life, at least for the time that being is absorbed like that, is as a pure mirror. There's not an ounce of selfishness. There's not an ounce of motivation. And yet there is intelligence, there is flow, there is skillfulness, there's timing. There might be jokes, there might be serious conversations, there might be physical actions, there might be metaphysical healing. Well, whatever, anything can occur in this space, really. But there's only the mirror offered externally, and internally there's only the God state, essentially, no self. That's the experience anyway. It's not true that there's no self. That's an illusion too. But I won't get into that now. Beyond the mirror, very briefly, there's the gateway. And this only happens if the entity has realized the absolute beyond the God state, absolute reality, before even the presence of God, before the I am, before consciousness. If you've penetrated beyond consciousness, which I doubt any of you have, maybe, possibly one or two, and I'm saying this to indicate how rare it is and how it's different from the God state. It's often conflated with the God state, or it's conflated with nothingness. And I don't want people to run away with this, like, oh, I had a moment where I had no thoughts for a second. There was just nothingness. I realized the absolute. Happens way too often. And therefore I must be a gateway being. And I'm just mirroring you, and you don't know what you're talking about, and I'm pure and you're not. You get those kinds of dynamics. So I want you to understand how rare this is. So I'm not saying this to pedestalize that or myself in any way. I'm saying this to safeguard you from your own personality. If you want it, you can have it, absolutely. Any one of you. If you want to penetrate into the absolute, you can, no doubt in my heart that you can. So it is for everyone. However, it is extremely rare, and it requires an extreme type of a state of focus and intensity and desire and understanding. And when you know, you'll know. When you truly know, you'll know there will be no doubt that this is what you have tasted and penetrated. And it's beyond consciousness. It's beyond any experience you've ever had. Therefore, you have zero frame of reference for this. You have exactly zero frame of reference, symbolism, concept for absolute reality. Everything you've ever known, conceptualized, imagined has nothing to do with absolute reality whatsoever. It's not even close. It's not even close. Absolute reality is a beast in and of itself. It's entirely different than the illusion of experiences. And yes, my friend, even consciousness experiencing experiences is illusory compared to reality. Reality cannot be described. It transcends all experience. What does this show up like? In an expression form. Like the shepherd shows up as service to others, well-intentioned, looking to purify themselves, looking to be of service, expanding their consciousness, disciplining themselves, giving free flow to their life and their manifestations as well, but primarily it's to serve others, to do their best, to be spiritual teachers in their own way, in their own expression. The mirror is in its ultimate state. I mean, you could draw a line somewhere, but it's hard. It's kind of a spectrum between the shepherd, high-level shepherd, low-level mirror, high-level mirror. It's just degrees of purity, really. So it's hard to say, like, now you have entered mirror state, and just a second before this, you were high-level shepherd. So it's not exactly like that. But we have to describe the differences somewhere. So the mirror is like I described in its ultimate form. You're just you're talking entirely to yourself. And at this point, there can even be shape-shifting experiences, which I've had several times as well, where I enter into that state. I talk to someone and they see different faces, they see different forms that they're interacting with. For me, it's just like I'm speaking, that my body is the same body. But I can feel when it's happening. And then usually I see it based on their facial expression as well. So anyway, it's mirroring taken to its ultimate expression, where you're just communicating what is needed for you. And there's no personal self in that moment behind this person in that sense. The gateway being is yet another beast. In terms of its expression, I've already explained the inexplainable, so to speak, what it's like internally. But so then what does that show up like? What would it be like if you meet someone who is in the gateway state in that moment? First of all, your sense of reality would begin to disappear. It would be like you stepped into a black hole and space and time and concept of self, it's all blending and blurring, and it's beginning to disappear. It's not recommended. And I don't activate it too often, therefore. I can, but it takes me some effort. And there would have to be good reason for it. And the people that are present would have to be energetically, vibrationally, of very sound mind, and they would have to be high-level shepherds at minimum, and have understanding about spirituality and be able to rest in their awareness regardless of what's going on. If they're on a roller coaster ride, they can stay calm and quiet. If someone abandons them, they can still recognize God. They have stability, true stability of the spirit. That's the only way that I would ever use or recommend or step into this energy, because it is like a vortex, it's like a black hole that gets opened up in the energetics of that space. You might call this woo-woo, that's fine. It's probably because you're looking at it from a Newtonian 3D point of view, or what you know, but everything is energy, and everything collapses around the consciousness of its yielder. So if you step into a state of the absolute, and you're allowing that to radiate out into the illusion, you will reshape the fabric, the energetic substratum of what you see as space-time and objects and thoughts and concepts. So if you were to be in the presence of someone like that, and they're really they're letting it loose, they're sharing of that radiance, you will most likely lose your sense of self. And it will be like you enter into a roller coaster ride, into a black hole, straight into and you have no clue. And it's just a free fall. So one has to be mindful of this. Luckily enough, if you're able to activate this, you're sensitive enough energetically to know when is a good time and when isn't. And usually it isn't. Very rarely is it a good time to open a tear in the fabric of the matrix. It's rarely a good time. Because the circumstances need to be right, the individual needs to be just ready for that. And it needs to even have a relevance to share it with that individual in their journey. Because even if they're ready for it, they're able to handle it, it doesn't mean it's the highest for them. So there's a lot of subtlety involved here. But I just want you to know about the existence of it. I've just given it a term, because I was feeling into the distinction. How would I term this? It is definitely different than the mirror state, because the mirror state is basically that 7 density pure light of consciousness. It's like the white light that combines all the colors of all the other dimensions. And it's that unified 7th state, again, the 7th, like the crown chakra encompassing all of it. It's the 7th density of that pure presence of God that has ironed out the baubles of the personal self. And when you step into that quote unquote God state, that pure awareness, you become like a mirror. But 8th density is beyond that. It's the original reality. I don't really call it a density. I don't refer to it as 8th density so much because I find it confusing, because it's more like a non-density. It's more like a pause between all densities, between creations. It's absolute reality. So, and the only way I could really describe the effect that happens is like it's a gateway. What happens to the energetics when you stand in front of a shepherd, I can describe. What happens to the energetics? When you step in front of a mirror, you see yourself. When you stand in front of a person, you just see them, like nothing significant going on at all. Whatever they say, whatever mistake they make, it's their mistake, not yours. It's their lesson to learn, not yours. Don't worry. People are just people. Shepherds, pay a little bit more attention. Those are guides. Those can support you. They're well-intentioned. You can learn from them and with them and also teach them. The mirror state is as pure a state as you can sort of interact with, and they don't really have anything to learn from you, at least not in that moment. They will still learn nuances because you cannot experience without learning. But there's nothing you could tell them that would directly benefit them in their own spiritual journey. However, everything you say and hear and feel and that they speak, if they speak, they don't all speak, will teach you completely. This is grace poured entirely in your direction for no other reason or incentive than your well-being, your unity, and your truth. The shepherd is the imperfect version of this. They aim for this, but they have too much personal self left, and so they work with that. But the mirror is able to do this. Where there is no self, no intention, is what you can expect. Then what's the distinction? What if someone enters into the absolute, so to speak, for lack of better words, enter into? But what if someone activates their absolute realization and you're standing in front of their physical presence? And a few times that I've experienced that through myself and the effects of that, it is like a gateway. It's like a black hole opens up, which is positive, by the way, it's not negative, but it can be daunting, right? It's like the next level shepherd's sacrifice of person to shepherd. This is like the sacrifice of even being. Do you trust enough in absolute reality to let go even of your sense of self altogether? So, but it's like a black hole opens up and like a vortex or sort of a sucking in, like an attraction, like a gravitational well, just like with the black hole, essentially, that functions like a gateway. So that's why I termed that state in action as the gateway being. So anyway, I don't teach this. I can't teach this. The only thing that can establish this would be to penetrate into absolute reality, which is an old teaching in and of itself. I do offer that in certain places. It's also on YouTube here and there, sprinkled throughout some of my guided meditations, just to give you a sense of it at least. So yes, my friends, that's basically it. But the main focus of the whole MU environment and the mission in general is to help people to become shepherds, or at least to train shepherds to help persons. The world is filled with persons still to this day. We need a lot of shepherds to fulfill the calling of those persons, and we can't do that if we're persons ourselves. A toddler cannot really help a toddler. They can bicker, they can learn from each other, punch each other in the face, and then like, ow, that's maybe not the best way to go. But it's different than a kindergartner, like someone who takes care of the toddler, who is there, who has seen more, who is there with stability, who can guide and teach and reflect. That's the shepherd. Most of my work, sometimes I've said, like, I'm not going to change the world, but I'm aiming to train the people who will. So that's the whole idea about this operation, is to get as many people as pure as possible, because that's also why that excites me the most. To train people who are so dedicated, but to enter into a training trajectory with dedicated, devoted people that can actually learn and dismantle themselves, and they're not afraid of that. And they can start to truly, genuinely communicate with source. That will just multiply the availability to enter the calling that exists so loudly in this collective's unconscious, in their seeking for love, the creator, source, clarity. So honestly, it is through you that I will live, that this message can live, more so even than it can live in just me. And that's my devotion, that's my intention, that's my passion, my calling, is to train the teachers of the future. So welcome, I consider you as such, even if you maybe don't yet, but I know you are. And so this shepherding journey is relevant for a lot of you guys, with the mirror sort of as your goal. The mirror is the mirror state of that pure God state where it's just the other person just there for them, not in a self-bypassing denial way where you've shoved everything under the rug and, oh, you're just a mirror now. No, it's got to be genuine. Again, it is a journey. Self-sacrifice, healing, integration, understanding, self-honesty, and still giving yourself to God. Being crucified and still giving yourself to God. That's how this purity begins to unfold. And that's the goal of the shepherd. But on its way there, it's the shepherd. It's not yet a mirror. So maintain that humility. Like I said, even in my quote-unquote position as teaching you guys and having done this for many years, I already talked about this whole concept like 10 years ago. Not that that's much at all in this cosmic scale of time, but you get my point. And I'm telling you, I'm not always in the mirror state to that degree of intensity. I have a life to some degree. There's things that I do that I'm distracted by or that take some relevance in other directions and so on. So don't claim to be a mirror. Just live it. Be it as purely as you can be. And it will grow over time. And it will purify over time. One who has become one with the Creator is the humblest servant of all, as Ra stated, and I agree, for what it's worth. When this third step is established, meaning becoming the Creator, one is rendered the most humble servant of all. Not the most powerful X-Man being on planet Nibiru. No. When you become one with the Creator, you are the humblest servant of all. So, if we have enough people of that level of consciousness and purity, I have no doubt that the planetary shift in consciousness will be easy. We need enough shepherds. We don't need more students. We don't need more teachings. We need more shepherds of the teachings. And some mirrors would be nice. But aspiring mirrors is good enough. It's way beyond the expectations of this particular simulation of 3D Earth. It's not expected that you become a high-level shepherd, but it's possible, and it would be a great service to the rest of the collective. Purity, devotion, earnestness, sincerity, surrender of self. Those are the things I love, I appreciate, I nourish, and I'm all there for. And I wish for you to wish that for yourself. You will thank me once you've done that, even if you are hesitant for it now. You will know the satisfaction. It can't be bought and can't be sold. Thank you very much for your attention and your trust. See, I had my coffee here this whole time. I had this delicious cigar, which is my chocolate, and I completely forgot about it. Had I not had this session with you guys, where I had to be of active service and step into that energy, trust me, this wouldn't have gone to waste like that. So, but I can still have it. I can enjoy it. But it's about where you're focused. What is your priority? What have you prioritized in your life? What have you surrendered yourself to? Only that will satisfy you. That's what you get back. It's not what you think and what you want and what you manifest. Those are secondary echoes, and they're very distorted and they're very wobbly. Again, in the next session, I'll do my best to clarify this, make it as holistic as I possibly can, while still satisfying this aspect of us that wants to express and have epic experiences and live in a mansion and have awesome travels and meet people and have infinite abundance. But this is the essence. It's your devotion. What are you devoted to? Because that's really what will shape your life. What are you surrendered to? It's even more powerful to say. Because the self can be devoted to some idea or concept. But if you're surrendering yourself to something, then it's really complete. It has to be true. And that's what you get back. You know, what you put out is what you get back, the whole law of attraction thing. What you're surrendered to is what you become, is what you are, is what you'll experience.
Thank you for watching this Bentinho live session. Bentinho now hosts these transformative live sessions completely free, offering profound insights and guidance to support your journey. To attend the next live session with Bentinho, simply visit massaro.university and follow the instructions to create your free account.